Welcome again to the Heart of Giving. You probably get tired of hearing me say this, but this program is devoted to the nonprofits in the city of Long Beach, serving the needs of the city, the children, the adults with the different problems that they have or joys that they have. There are thousands of them in our city that are giving of their time for nonprofit organizations. And you learn something every time about what's happening in Long Beach. I love filming days because I get to find out about what's really happening by the people that are making it happen. So welcome today to the Heart of Giving, and we have two very good groups that I'd like you to know. The first one is Casa. It is a home or a service for domestic violence victims. And we have with us Vicki Doolittle, who's the executive director of the Casa in the city of Long Beach. And I'm just so pleased that you're here. It was, I know, how long have you been with them? How long have you been with Casa?
6 years now as director.
That's wonderful. Well, yeah. I want you to tell me about Casa because sure. it means your house, and it's very interesting and so necessary, I know, because just talking a little bit that we have earlier, it's heartwarming what's happening to the people that need this help, but they need them desperately. And so tell us about Casa.
I'll be happy to. Sure, Casa has been in the community for 35 years. And this is actually our 35th anniversary year. Mm-hmm. So we were founded by a woman named Petra, who was herself a victim of domestic violence. And at that time, there were very few services available, very few shelters. Oh, yes. So she actually started a crisis hotline out of her home and eventually began taking in victims, women and children, into her home as well, until finally they were able to find enough funding to start the very first shelter, and that was in '87. And that's the shelter that we have currently. But she took the initiative to do it herself.
And tell me about the people that you serve.
Sure. Well, we serve men, women, and children, and anyone who is a victim of domestic violence is accepted into our shelters. We've got 2 shelters. We have a 30-day emergency shelter and a year-long transitional shelter. We have, of course, a 24-hour crisis hotline where our workers can respond to calls from the community 24/7 in English and Spanish. And we have a really active community outreach and education and awareness program. And
you know, how do they know about you? I mean, if you're in a crisis and you need help, how do they find out about you?
Well, our main number, our hotline number, is published, and so that has been since we've
published
been in the,
where?
Published in, well, on our website. We're out doing speaking engagements quite often. And so our literature, we have literature, but I'll tell you the truth, that the honest truth is that now, after all these years, it's mostly through word of mouth and other shelters, other violence prevention agencies within the community. So we have this vast network of cross referrals, and that's mainly how people find out about us.
And what is it you do for them?
Well, when they call our hotline, the first thing we do is we'll do kind of a brief screening and find out what their needs are. A lot of the calls that we get are really for information and referral, and a lot of them are people that we cannot serve directly. So we'll provide them with the information. If we take them into shelter, they come in for the 30 days. We have a 20.
Do you go get them, or do they come in?
Well, we tell them to meet us at a safe location. Usually that's at the police station, and then our staff will go and transport them to the shelter because, of course, they're confidential locations. Once they get in, we provide them with all kinds of case management and counseling and support groups. We make sure that the children go to the local schools.
They bring their children with them?
They do. In fact, at any point in time, roughly 2/3 of everyone in our shelters are children. We see a lot of real little ones, and we provide tutoring and educational activities and art therapy, pet therapy right there on the premises. So
when they call you, they arrange you have them come, like you bring them to your facility.
Yes.
And tell me about your facility.
Well, it's We've got classrooms on site. We've actually, it's configured in such a way that we have counseling rooms in a separate location. So a lot of the counseling and groups take place separate from the actual living facilities. There are 2 kitchens. The residents provide their own, do their own cooking. We provide for all of their needs, though. They don't have to buy anything when they're with us, as far as food or household goods or whatever. But we have separate counseling space, separate from the living quarters, and a classroom. There's a playground for the children, and so.
How many do you accommodate in the shelter?
Well, right now at our emergency shelter, we've got about 19, and so it's fairly. The other shelter, which is where they stay for a year, we have enough room there for 5 or 6 families to live. We've got several apartments, and that's a little bit different because they're there for a longer period of time. The kids are in school, the mothers are working or going to school themselves. They're saving up money. Again, they're receiving all the counseling and support right on site, but they're a lot more independent in that facility.
But they would go through the initial orientation for the days. And is there a turnover in that initial group?
There is. There usually in the first 30 to 45 days, that's how long it takes for a family to really become stabilized and safe. And then from there, we either move them to our transitional shelter or another within the community or to another safe location. Often it's with family or friends or some other affordable housing.
And this 30 days that you have them, it takes that long to lose a fear and anxiety, is that?
It's at least that long. That's a good question, because a lot of what happens initially really is kind of managing the really disruptive and unsettling emotions that have come up as a result. A lot of it is medical intervention as well. So they may have medical appointments, and we transport them. And the other thing that we do quite a lot of is we do a lot of legal advocacy and social service advocacy. Complicated court cases, custody issues, things of that nature. And if they need restraining orders, we help with that. So there's a lot that goes on, in the first 30 days, in addition to providing as much emotional support as we possibly can.
And what about the children? Do they stay with the mother in going through all of this, or is it separate? And then they see a change in the mother, or how do you work with the family?
Good question. It's a little of both, because we do have separate programs and separate services for the children that are age appropriate and that they really would respond to, that would be more appropriate for them. So during the day, there are groups that are only for the adults. That children don't participate. However, we also have some parenting classes and some other activities where it's really important for the mother and the children to participate together.
Oh yes, it's the feeling of being together and in a calm situation.
Yeah.
Very good. Do you have an example you'd like to share with us? The time goes so fast.
It does, I know.
Yeah, here.
I was thinking about that so much in preparing for this, but I'm thinking of one young woman who has 3 children, ages 11, 7, and 2. And she came through another emergency shelter, not ours, but then she came into our year-long transitional shelter. I interviewed her when she was ready to leave, and she told me some very interesting things about her life before. She endured about 10 years of violence and abuse, not all of which was physical. It didn't get physical until the end. But she described her life as she described herself as being kind of a ghost. She had lost herself. She was trapped. She didn't know what to do until finally someone gave her a hotline number. And so she called the hotline. We were able to get her into the shelter. She's a perfect example of someone who took advantage of everything that we had to offer.
That was good. She was looking for that.
And she was.
She was looking for that.
She was ready, and she and her children have been very successful now in their own home.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, what a wonderful thing to hear about, Vicki. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And you do such wonderful service every day, and I know it's emotional, and so to have somebody that loves what they're doing and can feel that compassion is what's needed. And I thank you very much. It's nice to talk with you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes. And thank you very much. We're glad that you were here, and we have another segment coming up in just a few moments.